Welcome to Let's Face the Facts, the rewatch podcast for the classic sitcom, The Facts of Life. Join us each week as we synopsize, analyze, criticize, and ultimately idolize the show. And now, here's your host of Let's Face the Facts, the wonderful David Almeida.
Thank you, Matthew Arter. Welcome back. It's another week, another show. Thank you for downloading and pressing play. This week, Matthew and I are joined by Alice Fairfax. Alice is a former performer, currently a copywriter and publicist in the professional theater arena. Like Kate O'Neill last week, I first met Alice when she and Matthew were on the audition team at the American Idol Experience at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I was a field producer there, so I was doing a different job. I didn't get to hang with them that much. And for that reason, I don't know Alice as well as Matthew does. So this was educational for me. I was really, really happy to have time with her and truly to get to know her better. So I'm really happy to be sharing that with you guys. Now, before we get started, I do need to welcome a new Tutti Frutti, Mark B. Hey, Mark B. Mark B. may or may not be someone by the name of Mark Baratelli. I don't know if he would want me to give his full name here, but Mark's been on the show a couple of times already. Now that he is a Patreon supporter of the show, I can give him this official shout out and be reminded that I am overdue for having him back on the show. So I need to make that happen very soon. But in the meantime, if you would like to be like Mark B, you can support the show financially. Just click on any of the links in the show notes or on this episode's webpage. And until that time, please join me in welcoming Mark B to the family. Moving on. This week, Alice Fairfax joined me and Matthew in watching Season 7, Episode 11, called We Get Letters, and it had an original air date of November 30th of 1985. I think we're ready to jump on in. Let's face the facts with Alice Fairfax.
Alice Fairfax, don't you dare ever tell me he will care. I'm certain. I think that every time I see your name. And I'm wondering if you ever watched The Facts of Life when you were a child.
Well, this was fascinating to me to watch it because I did not. I lived in Sweden. I lived in Stockholm, Sweden from 1978 through 1981. My dad was the naval attaché there. And we did not get American television. Back then, now it was similar here in the United States where there were networks and channels, and you watched things when they told you to watch them. Mm-hmm. But in Stockholm, being a socialist country, the two television stations there were run by the government. And so if a program was going to come on, the television was just off all day. Mm-hmm. There was not daytime programming.
Wow.
And so the television would come on at 7, say for a 7 o'clock showing of The Muppet Show. And so at 5, maybe 10 minutes to 7, a screen would come on with the picture of a clock with hands, and it would tick off. And instead of music in the background or news or anything, it was bird calls. And so you sat and watched the hands tick. And I remember The Muppet Show and soap, but I wasn't allowed to watch soap.
Oh, scandalous. Yeah.
Yeah, as you can imagine.
Wow.
And so we watched The Muppet Show. So I missed The Facts of Life starting. And then by the time that I got here, I was 15 or 16, something like that. And so I just kind of missed it. Mm-hmm. And I had a little bit of an awareness of The Facts of Life, certainly probably the song more than anything, and that they were girls at a boarding school. That I understood that, and I understood little bits of it.
So watching this episode, you're like, who the heck
What is
are
this?
these people? Because they're not in a they're not in
And like I had a little inkling about different strokes, like a little tiny. Oh, and we watched Benson. We watched Benson a lot.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
So like, that sitcom setup, that format, and this is such that, except for not at this point in this episode, I was like, oh, they're not in school. Something has happened to their sweater vests. Oh. And then the store. Okay, well, we have to talk about all of these things.
Yeah.
It was like watching it was like watching a cultural documentary for me.
Oh.
Because I missed so much of what it was like to be an American teenager.
Yeah.
Because by the time I got here, I had been in this international school. I had been in this very different atmosphere. There were 30 of us in our class, and I got here and I actually came to Orlando. I went to Winter Park High School, and there were 3,000, something like that. And then there were people that did the cheerleading, and there was the this and the that. And I just was, I hadn't ever shaped my legs. I hadn't I didn't know what was happening. And they were all, if you walk down Park Avenue and see the women that look my age, they all look like that then. They all had fabulous handbags to go to high school.
Did you go to school with the wonderful Delta Burke?
I did not.
I think you're a little young.
Before my time. She was before my time.
Yeah. Well, it's just fascinating, the idea, not just that you weren't aware of the facts of life, but that you were not aware of American culture in the 80s, that you didn't experience the 70s and the transition. You were just dropped into the deep end of the 80s pool.
Totally dropped into the deep end.
What a freak show. I totally understand. You say, I feel like there's a movie there or something. Like
yes, all of the 80s teenage movies were about me.
Yeah. The fish out of water.
I was completely lost.
Yeah.
Completely lost. Had no social references, no cultural references. Didn't get it at all. And so watching this, I was like, oh, okay. Wow.
Why don't you tell us about the nuts and bolts of this episode, David? You're the host, for God's sake.
I would love to tell you the nuts and bolts, Matthew. We are about to discuss did I actually technically introduce you or welcome you? Alice Fairfax, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much.
We are about to discuss season 7, episode 11, called We Get Letters. And the original air date was November 30th of 1985. And I forgot to look up where the title comes from. Is that a reference to something?
I think it's just a reference to like that term. Oh, we get letters.
I see. About like Johnny Carson talking about people complaining.
How everybody in the 70s used to say, we get letters. Even I don't think anybody ever said that, Matthew.
This was a mistake, clearly, to invite Miss Alice Fairfax on here.
But there was the Letterman, when David Letterman would go to the viewer mail, later in the Letterman run, there was a little theme song, we get letters, we get tons and tons of letters. Wasn't there?
I will have to check with my son on that. He is the talk show host expert, and he will be able to find that information for us.
Well, I didn't know if it was like a specific, it's like, David, Ned Beatty said it at the crux of the dramatic moment in this movie. You know what I mean? I didn't know if it was a hard reference or just a shitty title, because in many cases, they're just shitty titles.
I believe that the writers would not have worked that hard. Having seen this episode, I feel that that Matthew's answer is probably the best.
Thank you. There was a Perry Cuomo song called We Get Letters.
Well, I bet that was
A
it.
Perry what song?
A Perry Cuomo song.
I believe it's Perry Como, like como está usted.
What did you call me?
No. Okay, so it's a Perry Como song. That is in alignment with the vaudevillian middle-aged writers who seem to be the ones punching up these scripts for teenage characters.
Punching up. Wow. That is very generous.
Yeah. Well, this episode was written by, we have a team once again. It took a village to make this episode. The story was by Deidre Fay and Stuart Wolpert. They are regulars in the writer's room. They are producers on the show. But the teleplay itself was written by a woman named, and this is not a joke, Susan Beavers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Susan Beavers. Okay. I'm not going to touch it. Not going to touch it.
Yeah, I feel that may be a nom de plume.
Do you like the name Beavers, Matthew?
I'm just surprised you're not going to touch it.
Well, due to my sexual orientation, anyhow.
Don't go there with Alice in the room. We don't go there.
No, very proper.
Highbrow.
You were talking about being DP'd in the A few minutes ago.
I didn't say it out loud, though, did I, David? Did I? I spelled it out. As she sits there sipping her La Croix.
It's La Croix, darling. La Croix.
La Croix, darling. Susan Beavers would go on to write and produce for Empty Nest, Nurses, The Office, but not the Steve Carell Office, the short-lived sitcom called The Office in 1995 that Valerie Harper starred in, which according to, I think it was IMDb, that it was an attempt to do an office comedy loosely based on Upstairs, Downstairs. Okay. As well as Dharma and Greg. But Susan Beavers' main credit in her IMDb page is that she would go on to produce or consulting produce or supervising produce or executive produce 2.5 Men, like all of them, like all 200 episodes. She was in some type of a producer capacity, occasionally also writing. So
she's seen life.
Yeah.
She's really been through it.
Been through the trenches with 2.5 Men. But that came after this. This is the only episode of The Facts of Life that she would write. And I do want to give her some props because she incorporates, I believe I counted 3 show Bible moments. And when I say that, Alice, I mean references to other things in the history of the show, the Facts of Life cinematic universe, or the FOLCU, as we call it, that she references actual things that happened in actual episodes. And I don't know if it was her or, like I said, the others in the writer's room who punched it up, but I always love when they do that. That's a very happy thing for me.
But you did fail to mention that Susan Beavers, Nancy McKeon was such a fan of Susan's Beaver that she actually took her to Style and Substance, starring Nancy McKeon and the wonderful Jean Smart, his dear friend. I currently can't talk about it because I'm in litigation with her over the TV show Hacks, because they clearly stole my made-up life and turned it into a sitcom. But, you know, Jean Smart and I will get back together. We're friends.
I'm glad. That makes me happy. And the episode was directed by John Boab, who is the in-house director. He pretty much directs the majority of the Facts of Life and has for the last couple of seasons and will continue into the future. So now, Alice Fairfax. Yes. This is the time of the show where I like to put our guest on the spot and ask you if you would please provide a 1 to 2 sentence synopsis of this entire episode. Just a quick abbreviation similar to a listing you might find in a TV guide. Go.
I would say that after some falderall in the shop, Edna is visited by an old friend who brings with her a startling revelation, startling and heartbreaking revelation for both women.
Nice.
That's what I felt.
Very
Nice.
good. Very good.
And no spoilers.
Mm-mm.
Oh, no.
And had you gone on too long and had your brief synopsis gotten a little too unbrief, Matthew would have berated and scolded you. So you dodged that bullet.
People do it, Alice, and it's like they've never looked at a fucking TV guide before. It's like,
I'm an actual copywriter.
thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your brevity.
So, are we ready to jump in with the microscopic dissection of this episode? So we start in the store at Over Our Heads. Did you have any idea where the fuck you were when you started watching this?
I watched the episode 3 times
Ooh.
I had to watch the opening 3 times because I could not grasp what was going on, where they were, why St. Elmo's Fire was playing so aggressively loudly to open this episode.
I know. What was that about? They paid money for that shit.
1985, I was in college, so I saw St. Elmo's Fire. It's very, very important film for me. 1985. And so when that music came on, I got kind of like oh, this is exciting. And then it just was, I couldn't figure out, were they playing it for us, the TV viewing audience, or was it pretending to be background music in the store? I couldn't tell. It remains a mystery to me. Do you, either of you have a...
You're absolutely right in your description. It was assaulting. It was. Like, I did feel assaulted with it. But they have been doing that recently with this move to the newer, hipper Over Our Heads. Like one week it opened with To the Beat of the Rhythm of the Night. And this week it was St. Elmo's Fire.
Yes. Yes.
So
nice.
So the episode starts with this soundtrack accosting us. And while it's happening, Joe, Tootie, Natalie, and Andy are removing crumpled up newspapers from the front display window and putting them in the trash. And initially I thought, oh, did they get broken into? Did they get vandalized? I can't remember. And what is it? Matthew, tell us what this is actually they're doing.
That's what I thought it was as well. But apparently it was just some art that Blair decided should go in their display window, I guess.
I wondered if that's why I watched it 3 times, to watch the beginning of this 3 times, because I kept thinking, this is a continuation. This is continued. So we saw there must have been a camera shot of the outside of the display that the girls didn't like, that they thought they would throw away, because there would have to be some context to how is this just opening on the blaring music and them shoving newspaper in a garbage. And I couldn't, like they were talking, but they were crunching newspaper. So I couldn't really understand what was this? Was it trash? Was it garbage? And finally on the 3rd viewing, oh, Blair had created something that they didn't like.
Yeah, it was some type of a display that somehow apparently Blair was left in charge of doing the latest window display.
Well, she wears a suit.
So. And she does, yes. And one of them says, I think she was trying to say something about space and journalism. Really? Last week you were a newscaster and you wouldn't run the stories that your best friend wanted you to read for a stupid grade. I don't think Blair has anything to say about journalism after the show we watched last week, Alice.
Well, and again, Tootie's line about space and journalism, if we had seen the display...
True.
Potentially, this could have made sense.
I think it left the writers were leaving it up to our imagination about how bad it was. I think they were giving us permission to think, oh, it must have been really bad if everybody hated it. And it was, and also I think it was a poke at that, because they're all vaudevillian old people writing this. I think it was a poke at like, oh, that new age art that nobody understands.
Yeah.
She filled the thing with newspaper. What's that about?
Yeah.
So I think it was both that, but yeah, I didn't.
I agree that is definitely, it's like these kids today, they nail garbage to a piece of wood and they call it art. What is that?
I really love that, Matthew, that you can intuit the motivation of the writer's room. I really love that you just can place yourself spiritually, like on an astral plane in that room, and you get them.
I'm the level-headed one here in this one, David or Alice. I'm the one that I'm the voice of reason, if you will, and I think you will.
So Andy suggests, then the tactic is
hold. Can we discuss Andy?
As I said the name Andy, Alice started waving her arms, and I knew I was like, oh fuck, that's right. We have to tell her who the fuck this kid Andy is.
Okay, and now I have a relationship. She did not have one with me, but I have a relationship with Patty Duke. And as soon as that child's face came on, I was like, oh, that's Patty Duke's son. That has to be Patty Duke's son. Mm-hmm. That is Patty Duke and John Aston's son.
Correct.
I did not know she had 2 acting sons in her family.
Which is why you will find, as you watch the series, his acting is on a completely different level than everyone else, because clearly his mom was like, okay, we're going to do some line readings before you go out
this
there.
Bad boy.
Yeah. Razor sharp timing. He is fan-fucking-tastic. And
depth of emotion, lovely authenticness to him.
Yes.
And they gave him this horrible storyline about wanting to be a mime. Like, could there have been anything more fabulously 1985 than being in a Spencer's gift store talking about being a mime? That's like, well, this is it. They have arrived.
Yeah. It's like, he suggests being a mime because he's learning about it in his drama class. The girls are like, well, we were thinking of coming up with something to maybe replace this display that would soften the blow when Blair discovers we've taken it down. But
not sell things, not be a sales tactic.
No, not at all. This is a freaking art installation.
You'll find that sales is not at the top of their list when it comes to things that have to do with the shop, Alice.
No. Half the time, no one's minding the shop.
Again? Over the what?
Over our heads. Because financially they were in over their heads, and yet
because high as a kite wouldn't throw them off the trail enough.
Cokie McSnorts a lot.
Yeah.
But so Andy, by the way, is just a neighborhood boy who saw a sign that there was help wanted and he applied. We know at the moment.
Now we're getting very far. I'm getting farther in the episode. At one point, I think Mrs. Garrett says, okay, Andy, we'll see you later, or something like, okay, you go. And I'm like, where does he go? Where does he go?
He doesn't live there. Not yet. We know he's got parents. He's talked about parents, and there's been reference to a sister. We've never seen them, but then later at some point, and I don't remember well enough, so I'm kind of waiting for this all to happen at the end of the season. Gotcha. His parents, I think they very quickly are like, oh, well, they were foster parents. Yeah, that's the deal. And for some reason they could, and then wasn't there something he was living with his grandmother, Matthew?
Yeah, yes.
Like they kind of changed their stories along the way, but Andy ends up being an orphan. And when Cloris Leachman joins the cast to replace Charlotte Rae next season, he ends up moving in with them. She becomes his foster mom and eventually adopts him.
That would be a reasonable thing to do if Cloris Leachman showed up. I mean, really.
Of course. If Cloris Leachman had showed up on my draw, I'd have been like, adopt me.
All right, I'm here.
I want to be your kid. I want to see this crazy 24/7. But
so much.
we are predisposed by Cousin Oliver syndrome. We're predisposed to hate the addition of a child. Oh, the girls are getting a little old, getting a little teenagery. Better add a cute little kid. And other than he's a little horny for a child, we've called him the horny child before.
Always a hilarious gag, though.
Isn't it, though?
You've got a random extra child around.
Yeah. Children and sex, I think that is always a winning combination, comedically speaking.
I think almost every sitcom in the 80s probably it was like this bizarre, like,
no, you're right.
You know, Scott Baio flipping his collar up and hey, like, what? You were 12.
Yeah. But Andy's suggestion that they use a mime and it would be him is immediately met with the typical thing. No, mime, terrible. That's a terrible idea. So then Blair shows up and we get a little dose of the girls doing what Matthew loves to see. What do they do, Matthew?
They have to spend at least, I counted, 8 minutes of the show doing sitcom lying, Alice. And it's such an insult. The writers have trusted us to visualize the hideousness of Blair's window display. They don't trust us enough to know that the girls are lying to Blair. So we have to sit through the whole.
Set it up.
Yeah. You want to know what we're doing? And I'm going to tell you, it's a mime. I was surprised as well.
Yeah.
There
were vandals. Yeah. And when we showed up, they scattered. So they got away. Yeah, that's the ticket. Yeah.
Hate it.
That is a big Matthew peeve. But the sad thing is, or is it the happy thing, is that they got nothing else other than landing on, and we're going to replace it with mime. We got nothing else. The mime is what they had to decide to do to save face and to keep Blair from being too upset that they just destroyed her beautiful work of art. Then Mrs. Garrett comes in and mail call.
Yes, and George Clooney's there.
Yeah, like he pops in. Sure.
And is he like
Go speculate. I love where this is going. Take a guess.
Now I've lost his name, but the guy that used to fix everything in the apartment of Bonnie. Thank you.
Schneider. Is he like the super?
Yes. Is he? Does he wander by and read? After watching it 3 times, I discovered that the newspaper Mrs. Garrett gives him is the Kuwait Times.
That is a show Bible moment that I am happy that they refer back to.
I was hoping that had some reference, because I thought I didn't get any of the jokes between him and Natalie after, because I didn't understand her say understand
Kuwait Times. Yeah. Well, what happened was George was the contractor who helped them rebuild burnt up Edna's edibles into Over Our Heads. But he had recently returned to town when they hired him, because he had been in Kuwait for a couple of years installing hot tubs in rich oil sheiks' houses. So that's where he has his contracting background. But his dad owns the hardware store across the street. So that's why George Clooney is kind of hanging around and on hand. But what brought him initially...
Right. It's not that feathered hair.
No, it's not the bulge in his jeans that Matthew loves looking at every single week.
You're acting, Alice, like this is harder to jump into than the Marvel universe. This is a lot of backstory we're throwing at you.
Yeah. So George
go ahead. Well, with the Kuwaiti Times, it always comes, you should know, for future reference, we get a good old-fashioned 1980s Islamophobic reference.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Thinking, where are we at in the Gulf War? I can't quite remember. I remember Libya.
89
during the 80s.
Gulf War was 89, yeah.
I remember Libya being a problem. And Reagan sending jets.
Yeah.
Or something.
But the
so that
first
whole
time,
area was
it was tough.
rife for comedy.
Rife.
That whole area.
Yeah.
But the original time that George Clooney set foot into their home and on the show was, hey, I have a subscription to the Kuwaiti Times, and I think it was delivered to the wrong address because they're across the street. So that's why his newspaper is being delivered to them. And let's go back over all of these wonderful Islamophobic jokes. I think we should really spend some time with them.
Okay.
He starts doing the crossword puzzle, which is apparently in English, which is apparently using our thank the Phoenicians alphabet. So he's like, what's a 5-letter word for water storage? And Natalie says, basin. And he goes, nah, camel. What's a 4-letter word for tricky arrangement? And Natalie says, hoax. And he says, OPEC.
Fabulous.
And then comedy rule of threes. What's a 5-letter word for home entertainment? And Natalie says, harem. And he's like, cable. Get your mind out of the gutter, Natalie. Ha ha!
Because all them people over there have harems. That's how they live over there. It's just so fucking offensive.
It's a joke in our home all the time.
Oh, Jesus.
Because my husband is from Egypt. He's not from Kuwait, but from Egypt. But we talk often about the second wife. And, he's allowed to have 3, apparently. And I am very excited for this. I have a list of chores. I have things for her to do.
Nice.
Completely fine.
You get to be the head wife, right? Is that
I'm
the term?
chief wife. Yeah.
Chief wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
Delegate that shit, girl. Do it.
I am ready. He is a lot of work. And anytime he's a lot of work, I'm like, second wife, come on. Come on.
Nice.
Anytime it's too much for me, I bring up the second wife.
So to abandon this line of comedy, Natalie just throws up her hands and says, just read me the Dear Abdul column.
Oh, I missed that. Hilarious.
Yeah. That's comedy right there. But
perfect. Well, I'm very grateful to know what that was about.
Yeah. Somehow, somewhere, Mrs. Garrett has a letter from her friend. No.
Something else.
Joe just says, oh, hey, your friend Gwen is coming over tomorrow for on her way to Boston or something like that.
Yeah.
And
that's right. I mixed up my notes here. Yeah.
I just love was that how it was in the 80s? I'm far too young. Like, did people just like, I mean, she hadn't spoken to actual Edna and said, I'm coming. She's like, just called the house and was like, first of all, how'd she get that number? Second of all, third of all, like, how did you just call people and like leave a message, say, hey, I'm coming to your house on tomorrow?
No, that did not happen.
There were times in the 70s and the 80s where people would knock on your door. That used to happen. We used to have friends knock on your door.
Weird.
Yes, we would never do that now.
No. So we're 2 minutes into this episode, David.
We're going to do this.
When you said this was an hour and a half, I thought that's ridiculous. There's no possible way that you
can we're gearing.
This.
We're laying the foundation. Yeah. We're gonna start moving a little bit quicker here.
I will say, Matthew, that there are all of the encounters with Gwen were incomprehensible to me about her visit of like, so I'm here, but I'm going to go freshen up for several hours.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
I'm here to visit you. I'm on my way somewhere, but several times.
You are not wrong. You are not wrong.
Like, so she just no, I would think she would have sent a letter or a postcard saying.
Yeah. Why couldn't there have been a letter in that stack of letters of mail that Mrs. Garrett received from Gwen? That would have been perfectly appropriate. Yes.
The other thing that, besides the sitcom lying, another thing that I found happening a lot with the actors was the kind of the hand wringing that actors do. the touching of things, the hand, like
Okay.
when an actor doesn't know what to do, when the director doesn't give them anything to do, they wander. And there was several moments of wandering or hand like touching, like they just didn't have anything to do. So somehow, like if a director had been watching that scene, they probably would have said, why is Edna bringing in the news without having news of this friend? Why wouldn't we have that?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't those go together?
Yeah, agreed.
But
agreed.
I don't think the director was watching.
That's arguable. Yeah. So somehow we get to them talking about Mrs. Garrett and Gwen, my favorite sitcom trope, creating a history that was never there before. Gwen, oh, of course, your friend Gwen, all the times she would come up to visit. I'm going to say that again, that she would come up to Peekskill from Boston. Look at a map, Peekskill. Peekskill is south of Boston. Little bit, you could say come down, but not come up.
I didn't know that.
No, yeah, no. If we were up at like Syracuse or Schenectady or way up there, that's upstate. But no, Albany would be north. But no, this is south of Boston. But Mrs. Garrett and Gwen grew up together in Appleton. They say they shared boyfriends. Well, until her husband, Jack, came along. And then Mrs. Garrett waxes interestingly about how he was funny and bright and Paul Newman eyes, and he was quite a catch.
Well, we have to set up the subtext of leaving us. This is like an episode that they took from the play Doubt, David. And Edna is the child molesting priest, where you spend the whole time wondering, did she do it or didn't she? Until the very end.
So at some point, somehow, with talking about her past, they try to set up this weird transitional thing of Joe saying, wow, sometimes I wonder when I'm looking back at my life, and I'm not sure, am I going to have nothing? And I don't know if you knew this, Alice.
Clearly no memories.
And so Mrs. Garrett says, like Joe talks about, like she's not going to have any pleasant memories to remember back
her childhood
about.
Friends.
Yeah, of her childhood friends, of these women she's been living with for 6 years.
Me.
Yeah.
Right.
Mrs. Garrett says, like when you had Blair wrestle the mascot. That actually happened. This is another Show Bible moment. Season 6, episode 9.
So the mascot and the Kuwaiti Times are Show Bible moments.
Correct.
But the BFF that I grew up with, never heard of her.
Never fucking heard of her. Never had reference to her. Absolutely not. No.
Gotcha. Okay,
we've rarely known Edna to have any friends.
True.
So it's quite interesting to find out that this is one of her best friends that we've never met before.
And oldest friends, yeah. So then next scene, we're in the living room. Andy is standing on the coffee table practicing his mime. Honestly, not doing a bad job with it for his age.
Adorable. He's
very committed.
Adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Just so committed.
And again, he's getting lessons from two of the best in the business, for God's sake.
True.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but fucking John Aston, sign me up for a little session with him.
Yeah,
Not
could we get the
kind of
Patty
thing.
Duke John Aston masterclass? Fuck yeah.
She does have an Oscar, doesn't she, Patty Duke?
I believe
when
so.
when she was 12 or something.
Like when she was his age. He's 12 right now.
I wonder if she brings that up to him when he's like, I don't want to run lines. She goes, I had an Oscar when I was your age, Mac. So sit down, open the script. If you're going to be in a shitty sitcom, you're going to be good.
You're going to be the best thing in that shitty sitcom.
Be the best mime.
Mm-hmm.
As he goes on, notice, if you watch it 3 times, he actually shows fatigue as the mime. It's a fatiguing work.
Oh, God, yeah.
Holding your body in a particular way over and over again. And he shows that fatigue in his body. It's quite impressive.
Mm-hmm. Well, then Gwen arrives. It is played by Ann Jackson, who is kind of a formidable actress with a lot of credits, but she doesn't have a career-defining role or film or appearance that I think and I wish her career had. She was the wife of Eli Wallach.
How that feels.
Oh, yeah. She was the wife of Eli Wallach, and they worked together.
Anne was married to Eli.
Correct.
Not played his wife.
Correct. She was in real life his wife. And they were both big method actor studio people, both of them. And she won a Tony Award for supporting actress in Patty Chayefsky's Middle of the Night back in the late 50s, I think.
Perfect.
And she also has a couple of Obie Awards for Off-Broadway and a lot of films. And I'm like, I don't know any of these. I haven't seen them. Nothing stands. It's not like one of those, she was the grandmother in Meet the Fockers. Okay, there it is. We don't have that. No. Which is a shame because she is a wonderful actress. I mean, definitely old school trained. She still has that perfect front forwardly placed elocutionary, almost 1940s style of talking. Did you notice that?
Oh. Can we discuss the gloves and the coat?
Please do. Please do.
Now, if I may, Matthew, you put yourself on an astral plane with the writers. I went to her, into her head, and she has this entrance. The door opens. There is not a beat. There is not a second. And the lines are, well, are you going to invite me in? And Edna says, I'm sorry. I just realized just now, but there's no beat. There's no like,
no.
Are you going to invite me in? I'm so sorry. No, it's just, my next line is, I'm sorry, I was just thinking about you. Like there's no time. So the director has not directed this moment.
No.
And then she enters and Edna does this bizarre removal of her coat, like reaches around her, this bizarre removal of the trench coat that is delicately on her shoulders. And then she has these almost elbow length leather purple gloves on. Anne does, not Mrs. Garrett, Gwen.
Yeah.
That she has to take off in an extreme sort of way. And I felt like Anne was a theater actor and got on that set and went, what the hell is happening here? No one has given me anything to do. I have this ridiculous entrance. Get me some gloves.
Yeah, I demand them.
And a coat. I need business. I need stage business.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
This is what I felt would happen because it was just bizarre.
You are not wrong. Oh my God.
I watched it 3 times, David. I watched it 3 times.
Yeah, you've watched it more times than I have. So yeah. So, but yeah, the whole thing of you writing wise, it couldn't have been door open, Gwen, Edna, and then a beat. Well, are you going to invite me in?
Right.
That's all it needed. Just needed acknowledgement. Just open the door. Well, are you gonna?
And if the director had been watching that moment, he would have seen. On the page, it says, "Are you going to invite me in?"
Yeah.
We need a little something to happen there.
Yeah.
And so I believe Anne took it upon herself to get, all right, give me some gloves. I'm going to do some business then.
Well, the elocutionary speaking continues where she comes in and says, oh, I hoped you'd all be here. No R, here. And she does it it's like, okay, clearly this is just the way she was trained that this minute. She's supposed to be from Appleton, Wisconsin with Mrs. Garrett, but then studied clothing design in New York City.
Fashion design.
Fashion design.
Fashion.
I'm sorry.
Clearly fashion.
Not clothing, darling. It's fashion.
And then what was she wearing?
What? She was just matronly. It was 80s. I think my mom would have worn that.
Yes, got to carry that purse with her.
Keep the purse.
Second.
There are so many times though in sitcoms where you have characters who don't have purses, who just walk in in a head-to-toe dress, and it's like, well, where's your lipstick?
Where's your keys?
Where's your keys?
You're not gonna put your keys in. Okay.
Yeah.
Another television thing that makes me crazy is nobody ever locks their door when they come in. Now, this door was open and closed, but watch Homeland. Do you watch Homeland?
No, I don't.
She's a CIA agent. The woman has not locked her door ever.
And she's bipolar, right?
Bipolar CIA agent. But why would I lock my door? Everything's fine.
Oh my God.
Lock the door.
Yeah, Seinfeld. All people always talk about the way they just came and went. It's like, you live in Manhattan. You live in freaking crime capital of the world, dude.
It's ridiculous.
But yeah.
Anyway, but very similar. The no purse, no keys.
Yeah.
But no, not Ann Jackson.
No.
Wallach of the neighborhood playhouse. Clearly. Clearly. We had a purse, we had gloves.
So when she comes in with her, I hoped you'd all be here, all the girls are like, oh yeah, it's you, person that we totally know and have met before. Hi. Okay. Yeah, you keep believing that, honey. I'm not buying it. But so they say they've got a lot of gossip to catch up on. And when they talk about their past, it is revealed that Edna was back in Wisconsin with her two babies. So these are her two sons, Alex and Raymond. I'm like, I could see an R. That's all I could see. Alex and Raymond. And then she says, but Gwen was in New York City studying fashion design, and Mrs. Garrett's husband was on the road a lot. So this is where this tracks, because we know that she eloped with a vacuum cleaner salesman the night of her senior prom. And I speculated, it's weird that she talked about him like some vacuum cleaner salesman versus Mr. Garrett, my ex-husband, the father of my children. It was weird that she referred to him that way, but it seems as though
I did feel like, in the 70s and then in the 80s, you didn't talk about divorce the way you talk about it.
No.
And so she even used the word separated at one time, I thought, in this episode.
You know why?
And I was like, oh, I thought that was very bold.
Yeah. Well, you know why? That was necessary, because she says when she separated from her husband, she had to say later when the divorce happened, it was Gwen's husband who was an emotional support for her. So we had to track that timeline like, oh, no, she couldn't be already divorced. We have to get Jack into the picture first. Jack, Gwen's husband. Mrs. Garrett's husband was Robert. But anyway, this tracks. This is a good thing in that it tracks. I'm not sure the writers put that much thought into it, but it does at the very least not contradict anything we've heard before. And like I said, it kind of does. We only could speculate that the vacuum cleaner salesman was also Mr. Garrett, or was it a husband that she might have had before Mr. Garrett, but that was so not done in those days.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that was divulged, by the way, in season 6, episode 17, called Two Guys from Wisconsin. Anyway, we talk about
never mind season 2, where Mr. Garrett returns and he's a gambler, and that was why she left him. So, I mean, wasn't he a card player or something when he came back? And she was like, he gambled.
That was season 1, like episode 2. That was a very early episode, either 2 or 3. But all we knew was that he was a gambler. I don't think it was ever said what his job was or why he was coming through town. So thankfully, their lack of information there allows for this information to be conveniently put in there. I would love to think that they had mapped that out from day one, but we know they fucking didn't. Anyway, This is the moment, Alice, you were talking about this, how, oh, Gwen, thank you for coming. You're here to visit. She says, well, I just got checked into the hotel. Well, you're going to stay here. No, I'm going to stay at the hotel. And, well, let me show you our new store. No, I'm going to go back to the hotel and freshen up for a couple of hours. What the fuck did you come here for? What?
The whole thing was so strange. So strange. Like if you're visiting your friend, they have this whole discussion about how we are going to gossip, except for not now.
Yeah.
I have to freshen up for hours.
Yeah. We have to telegraph the framework of this friendship, which is so important and so real that we've never heard about before. And then
any scene that the two of them are in together, it is an off-Broadway play.
Yeah. Very true. So the next scene, we go to the shop and Andy is performing his mime in the window. There's a man and a woman in the shop asking Edna
That's the best part
about something where we were thinking of getting this for my mother-in-law. The man's clearly the dude's mom. And it's like an inflatable French maid. What the fuck was that?
It was a Spencer Gifts display, David.
Is that what it was?
It was like yeah.
But this is my favorite.
But
Again, a director who does not know what to do. Hasn't read it. Her response is, "Why don't you go look at something over there?"
Thank you. We do get a joke where Mrs. Garrett has a little Cadillac. One of the things at the counter, she says, maybe would she like a little Cadillac? And the wife says, that's too good for her. You got a Datsun? That's funny.
I love the wife. I loved the wife.
She was great. But I had the same thing in my notes. It's like they just needed them to go away for the scene to resume when Gwen enters. And that is the line. Why don't you look for something over there?
You couldn't
something.
But look in the towel display. Like you couldn't name something.
Exactly. We have, well, check out the figurines and the greeting cards. We have a lot of things there that you won't find anywhere else for the person who has everything.
Andy, come get them and show them something that they might like. There are other people working there, but no.
She can't interrupt his mime performance.
No,
she can't interrupt the mime. How dare you?
I love that you both came at it from an acting and directing standpoint. And I was like, oh, the customer service, Mrs. Garrett, that you're offering your guests. Why don't you look over there?
Yeah. Get lost, my friend's coming in.
That's the equivalent of a customer service rep being like, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That actress, Jane Anderson, the woman who says, give me a Datsun, went on to become an 3-time Emmy award-winning playwright. And she has 2 Emmys for writing and producing Olive Kitteridge, which starred the wonderful Frances McDormand.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, that's very impressive.
I didn't look her up. I didn't know that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So when you are in shows that aren't well written, you learn things.
Mm-hmm.
That's the lesson.
True.
Yeah.
So then when Gwen comes in, this is the first time she's seeing the store because she ran out so fast from the house in the back. And so she says, wow, look at this. She's impressed. I never imagined you here. And Mrs. Garrett says, well, life doesn't always turn out the way we expect it, does it? And she's like, no, it doesn't. And she says, oh. And Edna kind of says, so it's still hard, isn't it? And she says, yeah, meaning Jack died 2 years ago. She's still dealing with the death of her husband. And Mrs. Garrett says, I think about Jack a lot. You know, when I was putting this store together, I always thought, what would Jack think? I never said it out loud. It was never words. It's not a person I ever discussed in words or voice wave patterns with any other human being that heard me. But Jack was walking with me like Jesus, really and truly. Mm-hmm. He was such a help to me after the divorce. See, this is where we have the separation had to be earlier. And he always made me feel special. Again, this waxing on about how wonderful Jack was. And then Gwen, wow, we turn this on a dime. Mm-hmm. You are unbelievable. And to try and justify how cordial and pleasant and matter-of-fact that first scene was, to justify this, she says, "This is where I draw the line. I thought I'd get some pleasure from watching your performance, but I don't. And believe me," and I should do the elocution, "from watching your performance, but I don't. And believe me, it is the performance of a lifetime." Mrs. Garrett's like, "What in the holy fuck? What the fuck? I'm talking about the relationship you had with my husband. 15 years of deceiving me. Are you trying to deny it now?" And now the customers and Andy are overhearing and they're all like, "Ooh, this is juicy." And Edna's like, "What are you talking about?" Well, Jack's been gone 2 years, but it's only recently that she worked up the courage to start cleaning out his study and found letters that he and Edna exchanged over a period of 15 years. And Edna says, "Well, they were innocent. We were just friends." And she says, "Oh, but you conveniently forgot our home address. So you were mailing them to him at work. And he forgot to mention that he ever was in touch with you privately." And she quotes one of the letters, "With much love, Edna." And she throws them down on the counter and we go to commercial.
Well, they cut it for the syndicated version. They cut out her throwing down the letter and going, "Bitch." That did happen. I don't know if you saw the same version I did.
Yeah. That's
But it was very forward when she said it. She said, "Bitch," and it was very forward.
Well, during commercial, Alice, this is where I like to do a little short interview with my guest and learn about you, your life, and your career in the performing arts in Central Florida. So, Alice, let me ask you just a sort of light tour of your life. You've already told us you were born were you born here and then you moved to Sweden?
Yes, my dad was in the Navy. So I was actually born in Jacksonville at the Navy base, we were in all up the East Coast. We went to the West Coast, Vancouver, Washington, back to the Pentagon, then from the Pentagon to Stockholm. Then my dad was at the Navy base here in Orlando.
The Naval Training Center.
Yes.
That is now Baldwin Park.
That is exactly correct.
But you said you went to Winter Park High School while you were living here. So do you consider Orlando and Winter Park to be your hometown, like where you grew up? Or
I do now. Because now I have been in Orlando longer than I moved around.
So when did you start first performing?
Oh, it was really early. I mean, I really knew early. When we lived in Vancouver and I was in kindergarten, I was taking ballet classes and I was taking piano. At 5, I was sounding out on my little Schroeder-like piano, ding, ding, ding. I was sounding out records.
Wow.
And so my mother took me to piano lessons. I took ballet there, was very serious about it. And then went to Sweden. So I was always in choirs. I was sang in choirs and went to Sweden, sang in choirs there. We sang with ABBA on their last tour.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we're the children's choir that was on their last album.
Wow.
We sang with them in both Stockholm and Göteborg in their last concerts. So this was always my thought, was being on the stage.
And then did you end up studying after high school? Did you formally study? Where did you go?
I did. After graduating from Winter Park High School, I went to Rollins College and went to the theater program there. And that's a very production-oriented theater program, which is what I wanted. I want to be on the stage. Went to New York a bunch of times, didn't like it. Just wasn't my thing. And I played all of the old ladies in shows at Rollins. I've never, ever been an ingenue, ever. So had a real understanding that my career didn't start till I was 30. You know, that I wasn't really, because nobody was going to hire a 21-year-old to play Nancy Walker.
Yeah.
You know?
Ida Morgenstern. Yeah.
That's right. But I just wanted to be, I really wanted to be in regional theater. That's where I thought I belonged. And that's when things started to happen here in Orlando with Universal and with Disney's MGM Studios, and there was acting work to be had. And so I was at Universal for a very long time.
What roles did you do at Universal?
I was at the Murder, She Wrote show.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And so then from there, I trained into your show, into horror makeup. And did that for a long time, and Game Lab and something else. I can't remember what else I did there. And then came over to Disney, because I also worked with SAC Theater from the time that I got out of college. I worked with them doing Renaissance fairs. I did a lot of theater downtown. I did stuff at the Shakespeare Festival. I did stuff at the Orlando Rep, the morning shows there. So I was doing stuff all the time. And every single person at World Showcase Players left one year. Because the cruise lines opened, and they opened some improv shows, and that opened up some things at Pleasure Island. So the entire cast of the World Showcase Players left. So I was really the only one that knew what street theater was, because all of these people had left, and they hired a whole bunch of new people. And they just didn't understand the style. They didn't know what it was. But they picked it up pretty quickly, and we had a great time, and kind of had a wonderful cast. And I was there for, 93 to 2003, something like that.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a good run.
Off and on. Yeah, I was there, it's a year-to-year contract. So some years I was there full-time, sometimes. I had a child during that. I had different things that I did. So sometimes I would go part-time. Sometimes I would come back full-time, did the holiday storytellers, did the magical gatherings, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I was for a long time.
And then the American Idol experience. And I really haven't kept up with you much this last decade. I'm sorry to say. So where are you now?
One of the things that I was doing, actually all the time that I was at World Showcase Players, was I was writing a lot. Because in my view about being an actor, and especially about being an actor in a theme park, is that, it's potentially has a limited time to it, especially when you're a woman of a certain age, because immediately after 35, you have to put a bun on the top of your head, as you can tell by Edna Guerra.
Tell me about it.
Exactly. And so I tried directing. I tried show directing at Disney, and I didn't love that. Producing was not my thing. Numbers and Excel spreadsheets are not my thing. Stage managing, nope. So I felt like writing could be another avenue in the show business. And so I started doing marketing writing. I wrote a book, and did a lot of writing as my other thing, and was looking for that path. And while I was at American Idol, I had a gig where I was doing stuff at Disney Event Group too, where I was helping them with facilitate the sales, the break-ins, but I wasn't the actor. I was the facilitator in the room. So that helped me move more towards marketing. So when I left Disney in 2014, in the month of August, my TA at Disney Institute ended. They changed the site visits at DEG and eliminated my role. The American Idol experience closed, and World Showcase Players closed. In the words of Mark Catlett, he said to me, "Everything you've touched here has died."
Thanks, Mark. Wow.
Touched here has died. So I had some interviews other places to be a writer, and I started as a copywriter at Dr. Phillips Center. And I was writing promotional materials about shows, and eventually moved into being a public relations specialist and manager. And I'm a publicist for Broadway shows and copywriter, and that's really what I do now. And for the last 6 weeks, I've been opening Broadway shows and opening the Emerson Colonial Theater, putting shows on sale. Because all of the shows are reopening at the same time. And they all went on sale in the last 6 weeks. And all the ad agencies and all the theaters, their marketing directors are all either laid off or furloughed, or they left and got other jobs. And so people were really scrambling. And a friend of mine works at an ad agency in New York, and he called me and said, "Can you help me?" And so that's been really, really, really exciting and really fun. I put 12 shows on sale at the Emerson Colonial Theater in Boston, which was just thrilling, and helped put a bunch of shows on Broadway on sale in the last couple of weeks. So that's what I do. And I teach these workshops on storytelling. That's kind of my main content, my main writing thing. I'm writing a book on it right now on how to use storytelling to connect with your audience. So if you're a nonprofit or an entrepreneur, you want to use storytelling in your marketing, in your donor newsletters, in your e-newsletters, all of that kind of stuff. So I teach them how to do that. So I did a seminar yesterday for a nonprofit. I'm doing a seminar next week. And I have a podcast called Story Maven, where I interview people. We talk about story principles, and then I help people apply those principles back to understanding how to use story in their marketing. And how to be, because I just have a heart for people in nonprofits, because we've all been in the nonprofit world ourselves.
Yeah, we're actors. Our lives are nonprofit. Yeah.
And entrepreneurs. We've had to kind of promote ourselves. And here's the thing, it's exhausting, because you're not only doing the job of being an executive director or being an actor, but then you have to figure out how to promote yourself and how to make the picture right, and what is the sales thing, and who am I contacting, and how do I write this letter? It's just overwhelming. And if that isn't your thing, you don't have the tools. And I have all of the storytelling tools, because for 20 something years, I stood out on the street trying to convince people to come listen to me in the heat, and was able to do it consistently. So I take all of those tools. And so hopefully the book will be coming out end of this year.
Nice. What is the book called?
I started talking about, don't you wish you had a fairy godmother who could wave a magic wand and make storytelling easier for you? I kind of started using that. And so right now, the working title is Story Magic: How to Use the Power of Story to Create a Bond Between You and Your Audience.
Nice.
That rolls right off the tongue, Alice.
You should hear the others.
No, I just wanted to throw that at you after you gave us such a great build-up. It's a great title. I might have said, "This is my story and I'm sticking to it." A quick, good title.
Oh, yeah. Well, Alice, it has been great kind of reconnecting with you, because we really didn't have a lot of green room time, GRT as we call it.
GRT, the best.
We didn't have a lot of that back at the American Idol experience. So it's been great to kind of get to know you and reacquaint myself with you and your career right now. But
David, go ahead, say it, David.
Well, Alice Fairfax, enough about you. We need to get back.
About me.
We need to get back to this conundrum, this drama.
Well, and anytime that Gwen and Edna, to me, it turns into an off-Broadway play. It shifted very dramatically once Gwen showed up.
And we have to say, Charlotte Rae is on her way out of the series right now. Like, she already was trying to cut back her role. This is weird that we have such a Mrs. Garrett-centric episode. We haven't seen one of these in so long.
I think it was their last chance to try to get an Emmy nomination for her. This episode, but
it's very dramatic.
I love when they come back and they talk about the affair, and Andy's given everybody the story, and suddenly he becomes a 10-year-old boy. He's like, "I can't say it.
Yeah,
I can't say it." What? You were talking about fucking stewardesses on the last episode.
Yeah.
What?
I have to say, George is quite wonderful in the scenes with Andy. They're quite. The feathered hair. But I thought it was very authentic and very real, this interchange of like, do you know what that means? Oh, good. I didn't want to explain it to you. I thought that was really wonderful.
Yeah, what an affair is.
Yes.
So at one point, George sits on the back of the couch and puts his shoes on the cushion where people, this is relating to Matthew with hating people sitting their ass on the counter of the store. I was like, oh, okay, well, now I wish you were sitting on the counter in the store. At least that I know we could wipe clean.
I've never been so jealous of a couch. Oh.
But the girls come in, and Andy, having overheard this conversation between Gwen and Edna and asking George, should I say anything? I didn't know what to do. Well, the girls come in and pretty quickly it's divulged, and the girls are like, oh, well, that's weird. Wonder if it's true. I don't know. And someone says, it does happen, but this is Mrs. Garrett. And then Natalie turns and says, well, I wouldn't have believed it about my own father, but you can't trust anybody.
Now,
show Bible moment.
Is it show Bible? Okay, good.
Show Bible moment.
I certainly hope we've discussed this before.
Season 3, episode 17, called The Affair, where Natalie catches her dad and his mistress.
And honestly, Alice, without a hint of sarcasm or irony, Mindy Cohn had never performed as an actor before the show, ever. She was hired from a girls' school to be on this show. That episode, and she's like 3 seasons in or something, is probably some of the best acting that this little girl, they threw at this little girl, and she was wonderful in that episode. The emotion she pulled out, I don't know how she did it, but my favorite is like, because first I was like, where does Natalie get off? Like,
this fabricated drama that you get from sitcoms. We already had the weird fabricated drama of Gwen acting perfectly normal in the first scene and then suddenly turning on Edna. Well, now we've got this. Thank God we have Jo, where she's like, could we at least give them the benefit of the doubt here? And this is Jo's line verbatim. You're making up a story. Somebody overheard a conversation he shouldn't have been around for. Mrs. Garrett never lies. She bakes cookies and she knits. And it's true.
Is there a coming out episode for this character?
How dare you? How dare you? What are you implying?
What are you saying, Alice?
Nothing.
What?
No, where she comes into her own, where she comes out of her shell and comes into her own.
When she marries a man named Rick Bonner in season 9.
Oh, poor man. And for a little surprise.
I have to try that. I have to try and duplicate the sound you just made. Oh. Disappointment.
No, but her actions have caused us to have a diesel horn sound play when something she says or does in the show is specifically lesbianic.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it.
Yeah,
a lot of lesbian stuff going on. Yes. So Natalie ends the scene with saying, well, after 6 years of talking about trust and loyalty and friendship, I'd be more than a little disappointed if it was true.
Screw you, Natalie.
Oh, but it gets better.
Screw you.
I couldn't agree more, but I wasn't fully screw you, Natalie, till the next scene when Natalie full on confronts Mrs. Garrett.
Except that the camera angle, can we discuss what?
Yeah.
What is the director? He doesn't have, there were no iPads. He didn't have a smartphone. He must have been reading a book at the time.
I agree.
The shot is full on face of Mrs. Garrett. Was she wearing the midi dress then? The teal midi dress? She wore this fabulous teal midi dress.
I think
the whole thing.
I think
fabulous.
So, yeah.
Until she wore the red velour
nightgown,
house dress that all women over the age of 35 were required to wear.
It was standard issue, yes.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. But poor Natalie does this whole dramatic confrontation scene and he's shooting her back.
Yeah.
Her back to the camera.
She's trying to beat around the bush like, gee, I had a tough day today. This happened, that happened. And I find out that a friend may have been cheating on her best friend with her husband. I'm not sure how I can trust this friend ever again. So maybe because she's trying to be oblique about it or something, they said, let's shoot her from the back because she's not being direct, let's shoot her from the back. Finally, moment. When we cut to the reverse shot, it's over the other side and you see Natalie's face and Edna's. But yeah, it was like, it did linger a little too long on like, is that really, did they really plan and stage this shot to look like this intentionally? Really? Very weird. Finally, Mrs. Garrett.
What he was doing during this episode.
Mrs. Garrett
is a coffee.
Yeah. Mrs. Garrett is a little bit on the defensive, but she says, we were just friends. And she says, I didn't explain it to Gwen because I couldn't. And Natalie is just kind of like, yeah, right, whatever. And storms out. Like this is left in this thing. And Mrs. Garrett does say, I'm tired of what is happening here. Why am I having to justify this to every person here?
Who comes through this door?
Every person who comes through this door.
This hotbed of activity.
I know. It's okay. Now who's being dramatic?
This inflatable palm tree store.
Then we get this weird little short scene of Edna that night reading one of the letters, and we can hear the voice of Jack saying, my dearest Edna, Gwen has just gone to sleep, ... I can finally be alone with my thoughts and you, ... Again, implicational like, oh, this does sound like it might be an affair. I wonder what's going on. But very quickly, that scene fades out, and we come back to the next day, Edna and Gwen on the couch, and Edna
velour robe.
In the velour robe, yep. Actually, I think it's that night. She calls her there that night. She's still in the same outfit, and we later do find out it's midnight. I'm sorry, it is that same night. So,
yeah, because Gwen's still wearing her gloves.
Yes, she is. She was not letting go of those. I don't know where this director is. I may need the gloves.
Did she get an Emmy nomination for Best Gloves that year? I think she might have. Maybe.
Best stage business.
Yeah. So Edna says, fine, we corresponded and it started 15 years ago. You should know you were there. And it's like, what? Well, it was the night after the opening of one of his restaurants. We don't know this. This is new information. So apparently he was a restaurant owner, restaurant plural. And he was reading a poem at a party or something. And as soon as Edna says he was reading a poem, Gwen instantly shuts it down and says, oh, that was a waste of his time. And she's like, what do you mean? You can't earn a living writing poetry. My dad proved that.
I wrote that line down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa. We're getting pretty deep pretty quick here.
Wow.
I am confused, though. This is where my confusion with her plot line came, because he's not making a living as a poet. It sounds like a hobby.
I wrote down that was the first laugh of the episode for me. As after she said, my dad proved that. I laughed. So it was like, your wayward poet dad who didn't hold a job because he was writing bad poetry. Like, how many people does that happen to? Like,
and she says he did have trouble supporting the family. Apparently he was like, no, I'm going to make it on my poetry. I'm not going to stock the shelves over at the Piggly Wiggly or wherever they were.
Or teach English. Teach English.
Yeah.
Write poems.
But Gwen
on your lunch break.
But Gwen very quickly, after talking about her dad, says, I married a doer. I didn't want a starving artist. And that was the last poem he ever wrote, meaning I shut that down, patting myself on the back. I said, that fucking shit is not happening.
But
You're
did he
a
also
restaurant.
play golf? Did he also play golf? Did he also did he play was there anything? Was he allowed to have any hobby, Gwen? Jesus
Mhm.
Christ. I mean, good Lord. Work, work, work.
Yep.
Jack.
But
Yeah.
in response to that was the last poem he ever wrote, Edna says, no, that's the last one you heard.
Mm.
And it's like, what? Jack asked Edna if he could send her something that he wrote. It was one of his poems. And she said, that's all the correspondence was. It was 15 years of him writing poems and me writing comments. Knowing how you felt about the poetry, Gwen, you fucking bitch, he asked me to write him at the office. I'm paraphrasing. And then Edna says,
issue, though. I'm
huh?
taking issue. I'm on
You
Team
take
Gwen.
issue. Alice, what is your issue?
Well, that's nice elocution. My issue is that sharing one's poetry with someone and asking for their response is an intimate act.
Oh.
And I'm on Team Gwen. I'm on Team Gwen here. I think
interesting.
that Edna knew this was intimate and something he was sharing with only her, that he felt he couldn't share with his wife. And as her good friend of many, many years, who we've never heard about before, she should have encouraged her good friend Jack to share his most intimate, his artistry, his heart,
Yeah,
with his wife. I'm Team Gwen all the way here.
Okay, and that is I totally get that. I get it because the term emotional affair did not exist in 1985. That is something that would probably, this is dancing very close to, because we know how much she admired him. So you do get the sense that, well, no, this was this, and this was just poems and responses. But there was a tiny bit of her going, this is a piece of him that just belongs to me.
I felt that way. But then she reads the poem.
Yeah. But then, she, but here's the thing. She gives her the letters. I mean, it's one of those, if there was anything slightly untoward, why would she give her that? She says, here. And she says, but I read the letters. And Edna says, read them again. There's nothing there. And read these. These are the ones that he wrote to me. So honestly,
these are all the poems that are apparently about Gwen.
Yeah. And so she reads one of them.
In a rhyming scheme.
Oh my God. And it's like, I didn't think you'd have to worry about him being a failure at based on this.
He was a restaurateur.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here with my pen writing about Gwen. I don't know when.
I hate to laugh at the man's heart. I've given an impassioned plea for his intimate soul.
Well, Dr. Seuss, he ain't. Let's just say. I
mean, no, Dr. Joyce Brothers, he ain't. So we have the moment where, because she reads the poem and she says, he wrote it for me. And she says, here, I should have given you these a long time ago. And can you forgive me for keeping this from you? Because I did keep it from you. At least Edna fesses up to that. And probably the best thing that Edna says in the whole episode, when he asked if we could continue corresponding, I thought to myself, no husband and wife can be everything to each other. This way, Jack would have someone to share his poetry with, and you didn't have to be bothered with it. Because clearly you fucking hated it.
Not bothered, traumatized because of the father, horrible failed poetry. How kind Jack was. I don't want to re-traumatize you.
Yeah.
Show me on the whiteboard where the poet touched you. Show me.
So
Such
the last
trauma.
bit is Gwen says, what time is it? And she says, midnight. And she says, well, my flight leaves in 7 hours. Is that enough time to do the gossiping we wanted to do? Well, and they get all snuggly. They both struggle to bring one of their legs up on the couch. They're both like,
And the weird touching again. The director didn't have any closure, so they do this kind of weird, like almost poking at each other's face, kind of. Just give actors something to do. That you need to physically give them something to do.
Well, did yours cut off before mine did? Because Edna full on unzipped her house coat. Did you not? You guys did? Oh, I got a completely different ending.
Yeah, syndicated.
Okay, yeah.
The syndicated version cuts a lot of things out of it. Yes. So thank God Edna and her old friend, dear friend, closest childhood friend, Gwen, thank God things are okay with them. Because we will never see her again. Gwen did not attend Edna's almost wedding last season. Gwen will not attend Edna's actual wedding next season. She disappears off the face of the earth.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
Yep.
She's busy reading A Light in the Attic.
So last impressions about the episode. We always try to make notes for the writers and, send the rewrites back in our time machine. There's a scene, an important scene missing. As Gwen and Edna are now friends at the end of the episode, we needed Natalie to come downstairs and be all, oh God, you guys were talking loud. You woke me up. And have Mrs. Garrett say, good.
Yeah, here's the letters. Here we are.
But no, not here's the letter. You don't get to read these, and you don't get to ever question my integrity, you ungrateful little fucking bitch.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is divisive. This is a divisive episode.
Divisive. Don't you think there should have been some sort, even not what I'm doing, but don't you think at some point there should have been something to do with Natalie getting slapped for condemning Mrs. Garrett and so readily. So I don't care about Natalie's trauma with her dad having an affair. It's like, that's not Mrs. Garrett. You spent more time in your life with Mrs. Garrett than you have with your father. He shipped you off to a boarding school.
I do feel like we could have trimmed the whole shop beginning and really had the episode be about this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was room to have this be a real story.
Yeah, because the B plot line of Andy as the mime, that doesn't really have a payoff. It's just she dismisses him at the end. We know he's tired.
I mean, the mime was fine. It was the newspaper. Let's cut the newspaper.
Yeah, agreed.
The newspaper.
Well, Alice, this has been awesome reconnecting with you, catching up on your life and your career. And I would love it if we might have a chance to do this again.
This was wonderful. And I feel like it was so interesting to kind of really look at this and dissect it, because they are some really committed actors, Charlotte Rae and Ann Jackson, and even George Clooney, and working to get better, working to be good at their craft. And so it was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Telling the story, as it were.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening.
Well, thank you, Matthew, for kind of engineering this, because you are closer to Alice than I. So thanks again for doing this.
Well, I thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Smooches, my dear, and goodbye. Mwah.
Love you both. Bye.
I love Alice.
I love Alice. And there you have it. That was Alice Fairfax. I will post a link to her Story Maven podcast. I didn't even know she had a podcast, and I haven't had a chance to listen yet. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of her stuff and her storytelling expertise. Now, the only other point I didn't get to make as I was finishing off the episode and saying I really wanted Natalie to get some sort of comeuppance for doubting Mrs. Garrett's integrity, I just want to remind everybody that it has been discovered over the course of this podcast that of all of the girls, Natalie is the one who is the most ethically challenged, including but not limited to Season 2, in Bought and Sold when she lied directly to her mother on the phone to get her to send more money so she could buy more of the expensive Countess Calvé cosmetics from Blair. Remember that one? Then there was last season, just recently. She was forging names on the petition to save the drive-in movie theater in The Last Drive-In. And then she set up Joe and Blair on computer dates and lied to their faces and sent them out with these two boys under false pretense in Love at First Bite. And it's like, really, Natalie? You're going to have a debate with Mrs. Garrett over ethics? Nope. Not on my watch. Nuh-uh. I'm shutting that down right here, right now. So next week, we're going to be watching Season 7, Episode 12, called Ballroom Dance. And our special guest is going to be our magnificent dancer friend, Kristen Shiola. You can watch the show for free at dailymotion.com or on the Roku channel. I will post links in the show notes and on this episode's webpage. That is all for this week. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, the facts of life are all about you.
Let's Face the Facts was created, produced, written, hosted, and edited by the wonderful David Almeida. Our theme song was beautifully arranged and recorded by Ned Wilkinson. Please visit FaceTheFactsPod.com for supplemental photos and videos, links to social media, and ways that you can support the show. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review.
This is Matthew Arder saying tune in again next week for another thrilling episode of Let's Face the Facts.